So, guys, I was reading the scripture, and these two verses actually jumped at me, and I'm gonna read that to you, and I would like you to, think about it. This is in the book of Hebrews, chapter 6. I know there's still a debate of who wrote the Hebrews, if it's Apostle Paul, if it's any of the other apostles, but that is a story for another time. So, the book of Hebrews, chapter 6, and two verses here, 18 and 19. Actually, 17 and 18, I mean, and I'm reading the New King James Version, and I will read the NIV. And he said, thus God determining to show more abundantly to the heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel, confirmed it by an oath. If you have the time and you read the scripture from the beginning, you read the chapter from the beginning, it was talking about the new covenant of Jesus, right? The Jesus, the sacrifice, and now we are joint heirs with Christ. So have the time to read and digest. And verse 18, he said that by two immutable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we might have strong consolation who have fled for refuge to lay hold of the hope set before us. I was reading, and when I heard that, I stopped. He said, between by two immutable things in which it is impossible for God to lie. So I paused, I meditate, and let me read the NIV version for you. And and it is just to confirm. I've read it before, but new meaning, came to life when I read it again. That God cannot lie. And I think there was earlier of the chapter was talking about, how he swore by himself to Abraham that I did swear that I will bless you because Abraham did obeyed and was going to sacrifice his only son that time, Isaac. There is no way you swear like you using somebody that is of a higher authority. Like when you give a recommendation, you're using somebody with a higher known name, known identity, but nobody's bigger than God. So he has to swear by himself for Abraham. And in this verse, these two verses, not the NIV, it said because God wanted to make the unchanging nature of his purpose very clear to the hearers of what was promised. He confirmed it with an oath. God is God. And no matter the situation you are going through, don't be deceived. God cannot lie. And I was listening to somebody, I forgot who was that. I don't know if it was Duncio Yekon. That sometimes God may not explain himself. God doesn't explain himself, but he revealed himself. Sometimes we have questions, right? But God is not going to be probably, explaining why he do certain things. But then in certain situations, is going to reveal himself to you. And you are going to be able to get a clearer understanding of what is going on. So in verse 18 of this is Hebrews chapter 6, y'all. Verse 18, the NIV version. And he said, God did this so that he made an oath. And he said, God did this so that by two unchangeable things, hmm, in which it is impossible for God to lie. He said, God did this so that by two unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie. So if God has promised you something, it's going to happen. The circumstances, the situation may not look like it. Because sometimes when God promises us something, we are looking at an avenue of how it's going to happen, right? If you look at the story of Abraham and Sarah, the wife, God has promised them that they're going to have a son, and it took time, actually 25 years. In the process, I love Sarah. In the process, was like, where God promised us a son, if that son doesn't come from me, then it may as well come from a maid servant. And do and she tried and made the husband to um, had a situation with Agar, which was another story, another time, and that one had Ishmael, and there was issue, the woman left, and all of those stories. But God still said that is not the promise. So sometimes maybe looking at we want God to do it in during certain timeline. And when it's not happening that way, we may think maybe God has forgotten. God is not able to keep up with his own side of the bargain, or we can try to help God. But let me tell you, say God did this so that by two unchangeable things, it is in which it is impossible for God to lie. That is a big deal. We human, we can lie sometimes. There's some things they call white lies. There are things they call alternative fact. If you know, you know. But God cannot lie. It is impossible. So I just want to share that with you, to rely on the promises of God. Don't be deceived by what is going on. God is going to do what He promised you. He's going to do it. It's just that sometimes the timing of God is different from our own timing. And sometimes we want God to do it in certain ways, in certain format, in certain time frame. But God knows all and He sees all, and He's going to do it at His own time. So be encouraged. God does not lie. What God has said to you in the Eden is going to make it happen. God does not lie. What you've seen in the dream, what He has confirmed, is going to do it. God does not lie. All right? So you may not understand, or God may not explain things to you, which He doesn't have to, but He will reveal Himself to you. So you may pray that prayer that God reveal yourself to me. If you've been waiting for certain promises to come to pass, offer a sacrifice to God. That Abraham will do that, and we build an altar. He will speak with God. God will speak with him, and he will ask questions, like a dialogue with God. So do the same thing, but know that God cannot lie. All right, God cannot lie. God cannot lie. If He has spoken, He will do it. He's a faithful God. All right, I hope that kind of help you. So, I just say, let me just share that because I keep referring back to it day after day. I've read it a few days ago and it's still coming back to me, and I just want to share that with you. If you need a prayer, please put it in a chat or private message me, whichever way, and I will join my faith with your faith, and we trust God for a manifestation. God bless you. I love you guys. This is First Lady V.